Bryce's best 10 teams going into week 6. Going to week 6, the 10th best team in the NFL, they drop a few spots. It's the Buffalo Bills. Actually, they drop 5 spots to number 10. You're like, Bryce, Buffalo Bills at 5, are you kidding me? Or at 10, are you kidding me? Buffalo Bills, the 10th best team, are you nuts? No, I'm actually not nuts. I'm objective. Listen, this is a team, we've seen it, and I said this after they blew out Miami. The last 2 years, we've seen, or even the last 3 years, but certainly the last 2 years, we've seen them get off to these hot starts, these 4-1 starts, these 6-1 starts. They're feeling good about themselves. They have a signature win early on their schedule. In this case, Miami, smacking Miami. And then they had that game where they're gonna beat that team. They're more talented and all that. Well, the problem is the Jacksonville Jaguars have the superior quarterback. The numbers back it up. The success in the last year backs that up. And they got beat. They got beat up on the defensive side of the ball. Jacksonville's defense beat up Buffalo's defense. Trevor outplayed Josh Allen in basically every respect of the game, every aspect of the game. Jacksonville ran the ball better. Jacksonville's better coached. But listen, Josh Allen's still absolutely one of the 6 or 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Stephon Diggs is one of the 6 or 7 best receivers in the NFL. The defense is still really good, although they did lose, and this is a big reason I dropped Buffalo as well. They lost Matt Milano. They lost multiple other defensive starters. They lost Tre'Davious White for the season. So some key injuries for Buffalo. We'll see if Von Miller can kind of resurrect that defense to a certain extent with all the guys they've lost. But this is rough times for Buffalo. They got the Giants this week, so that's kind of like a get-right game for them to a certain degree, so just kind of get themselves back on track. But for now, I'm not a believer in the Buffalo Bills. I've got them today as the 10th best team in the National Football League. To number 9, it is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Back in the top 10, back in Bryce's best 10, Jacksonville at number 9, and here is why. Listen, Trevor Lawrence, I have said this religiously for the last year. Trevor Lawrence is the 3rd best quarterback in football. He ended the second half of last season as Pro Football Focus's 3rd-ranked quarterback, 3rd highest graded quarterback, behind only Mahomes and Burrow. That's the only 2 guys I think he's behind at this point. People were crushing his performance through the first part of the season, completely ignoring the fact receivers couldn't catch passes to save their lives. Calvin Ridley was having problems. Zay Jones was having problems. Evan Ingram was having problems catching the football. Jacksonville was up there at the top of the league in drop passes. They fixed that over the last couple of weeks. Certainly this past game against the Buffalo Bills, they're one of the better teams in the league on 3rd down. They've seemed to have found a really good, consistent running game with Travis Etienne, and the defense is starting to find its stride. Listen, they gave up 7 to Atlanta, an Atlanta team that had some success offensively against Houston, and then this week, Buffalo only had 7 points with 4 minutes left. They score a couple times there at the end to make the score look a little bit better, just to keep pace with Trevor and the Jags. But that is a Jags defense that I was really skeptical about, but seems to kind of be finding its rhythm to a certain extent. They got a lot of good young talent over there. Love Doug Peterson, always have since his days at Philadelphia. I think he's one of the better quarterback whisperers to a certain extent. He comes from the Andy Reid coaching tree. Really like Jacksonville. I maintain that they'll lose to Kansas City in the AFC title game, but the Jaguars are the 9th best team in the National Football League. If we can go now to number 8, for some reason, looks like the Seattle Seahawks and number 8 are not on this list. If we can, let's get that graphic back on there. Again, so some reason Seattle is nowhere to be found. Are they there? Here we go. Got the Seattle graphic right here. So here we go. The 8th best team. The 8th best team in the National Football League is the Seattle Seahawks, and here is why. Listen, Seattle obviously didn't play this past week. They're at number 8. They were at number 9 last week. They moved up a spot because Buffalo moved down. It's again, I speak to the fact that you beat the Giants. Giants aren't a very good football team, but when Geno Smith goes out, you don't generate much of anything in the passing game, despite having one of the better trios at wide receiver in football in Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, and Fant, the tight end who made some big-time plays the other night. But defensively, Seattle, this kid, Devin Witherspoon, okay? This is a guy who I was like, when they took him 5th overall, I'm like, I feel like they overdrafted a little bit. But if there's anybody who knows how to coach cornerbacks, it is Pete Carroll. The man knows how to develop that position at a supremely high level. He's looked great through the first month of the season. Seattle has a good pass rush. Seattle has an improved offensive line. This bye week will help some guys get back healthy. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, the running backs back there, are both very talented, very good players. So I really like the Seahawks are at. I'm not saying they're like a contender in the NFC, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find 10 better teams, or in this case, 9 better teams, or 8 better teams, rather, that are better than the Seattle Seahawks at this particular juncture in time. I've got the Seattle Seahawks Seahawks as the 8th best team in the National Football League. At number 7, I know we love to crap on this team all the time. But let's reel it back in. Let's reel it back in. The 7th best team in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys, and here is why. So look, Dallas, the rough loss, 32-10 to be exact, to the San Francisco 49ers in the Bay Area. Dak Prescott didn't play well because he never plays well against the 49ers, because virtually no quarterback plays well against the Niners. Mike McCarthy's game plan was odd again, way too conservative to give yourself a chance to win that football game. Dallas's defense was abysmal, particularly in the pass defense, which was kind of what I thought was one of their strengths, rather. Micah Parsons had a very quiet afternoon, quiet evening, rather, against San Francisco. However, let's reel it back in. Micah Parsons is still one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in the sport. Dak Prescott is still one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb, if you could get him the ball, is one of the 10 best receivers in the sport. I don't love the offensive line. It's good enough. Zach Martin's still on it. Maybe not in the middle of his prime anymore, but still very talented. I'm not going to sit here and just overreact to one loss. Like, everybody loses to San Francisco. Most teams get smoked by San Francisco outside of the LA Rams, and that's just because there's the divisional familiarity there. Okay, so that's what that is. So Dallas lost to San Francisco. I expected them to. Didn't think it'd be this bad. That's why I dropped them. They were my number 3 last week. They dropped to number 7. I expect they'll beat the Chargers this week, rise up precipitously on the list. Dallas Cowboys at number 7. The 6th best team in the NFL, they too drop a few spots, or a couple spots rather, from last week. 6th best team in the NFL is the Baltimore Ravens, and here is why. So you're like, Bryson, why didn't you drop Baltimore more? Here's why. So defense was excellent against Pittsburgh. Then again, most defenses are, because Matt Canada is a clueless offensive coordinator. But if you look at Lamar Jackson, he had an awful 4 minutes of that game against Pittsburgh. The goal line interception down in the red zone. He had the strip sack. Alex Highsmith strip stacked him. TJ Watt picked it up, and then he came up short on the final drive of the game. But for the first 56 minutes of that football game, the game, as a Steelers fan, I can say this, should not have come down to Lamar Jackson having to make those plays at the end, or being put in that position. The Ravens had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 drops on the afternoon, in Pittsburgh. 7 drops for the Baltimore Ravens, including 3 by Mark Andrews. That does not even include their best wide receiver at least at this particular juncture, Zay Flowers, tripping on a play that would have been a walk-in bomb touchdown on a gorgeous throw by Lamar Jackson. I have no reason to believe that this Ravens team is bad. Mark Andrews said after the game, listen, this isn't who we are. We've got a great defense. We've got a high-powered offense. I'm not worried at all about the Ravens moving forward. I may not like them as a Steelers fan, but I still think they got one of the better rosters in the league, and I still think they're absolutely a Super Bowl contender in the AFC. Baltimore Ravens as the 6th best team in the National Football League. And now we move to the top 5. At number 5, the Miami Dolphins move up to number 5. Last week, the Dolphins were at number 7, so they move up a couple of spots, and here's why. So we talk about, and I remember talking about this with the Buffalo Bills when I put them at number 5 last week. Didn't put them higher, but put them at number 5, is that I couldn't ignore the fact that in the last 3 weeks, Josh Allen was statistically the best quarterback in the NFL. Do I think he's the best? No. But he was statistically the best through the last 3 weeks, or at least leading up to that point. Tua Tagovailoa over the course of the season thus far, albeit it's only 5 games, has been virtually first or second in every category that matters. I mean, touchdowns and yards and QBR and passer. I mean, he's been great. Tua Tagovailoa has been undeniably one of the 3 or 4 best quarterbacks in the league this season, and certainly is on track to potentially win MVP. You've got Tyreek Hill doing what he's doing. Jalen Waddle back in the lineup. Raheem Mostert, the running back, playing outstanding football. Now, A-Chain is going to be down for a little bit, which is a tough loss. Really talented running back that they have. Rookie running back that they have. I like Miami's offensive line. The only reason I didn't put the Dolphins higher, they're well coached too. I love Mike McDaniel. The only reason I didn't put the Dolphins higher, folks, that defense is a legitimate concern. They have twice now gotten burnt. First by the Chargers, then by the Bills, and even the Giants move the ball. Giants, who can't move the ball to save their lives, move the ball at a pretty consistent pace against this Miami Dolphins defense with Vic Fangio, who I really like as a defensive coordinator. I still have faith that he can sort of get that group fixed. I do believe the Dolphins are a Super Bowl contender and a legitimate threat to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. But as for right now, listen, I see them in the spot where they're the 5th best team in football. probably the second best offense to San Francisco in football. And then as for their defense, that's a little bit of a concern. But I love Mike McDaniel. Tua, you guys know I bought into him starting last week. So props to the Miami Dolphins. They are the 5th best team in the National Football League. At number 4, it's the Fighting Dan Campbells. The Detroit Lions, the 4th best team in the National Football League. I know there's outside of Detroit, Michigan, I have to be the only person in the NFL, the only person in the world outside of Detroit that holds this opinion. But Detroit's the 4th best team in the NFL, and here is why. The creativity, and I love this. This is what drives me bonkers about Matt Canada in Pittsburgh. Don't mean to bring up the man's name so much, but whatever. The creativity by this Miami Dolphins, the creativity by this Detroit Lions offense. Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator. You saw the play where Jared Goff is under center and they're they're snapping the ball between Jared Goff's legs and a direct snap to David Montgomery, the running back. They've got playmakers everywhere. Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's hurt this week, isn't really being utilized that much, but you'll see later in the season, he'll get the ball more, he'll be making plays. Detroit has one of the 5 best offensive lines of the league. Jared Goff has this season, been one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's one of the 10 best in general. And listen, Detroit's defense, although they did lose my man, God bless him, Emmanuel Mosley from the University of Tennessee. Mosley went down. First game since coming back from a left ACL tear. He then tore his right ACL, or it's the other way around, one way or the other. But brutal loss for the Lions. Hate it for Emmanuel Mosley to go down for the season. Yet and still, though, you got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you got Cam Sutton, you got some playmakers in that secondary. Alex Anzalone at linebacker. You got Aiden Hutchinson, just looks better by the week. This looks every bit of the guy that I said coming into that draft should have been the number 1 pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They made a mistake there. He's doing a spectacular job rushing the passer, making plays defensively for Detroit. I love everything about this Lions team. I've said since the get-go, y'all know this. I think they're going to be a game away from the Super Bowl this year, losing the NFC title game. Today, they are the 4th best team in the National Football League. At number 3, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are the 3rd best team in the NFL, and here is why. So I think it's safe to say today, not even just by the standings, because standings can be a little bit misleading at times given the schedule, but just in terms of the eye test, just in terms of what we've seen on film from the teams this year, Jalen Hurts is playing outstanding football, played great against the Rams. I know his numbers aren't going to jump off the board, but if you look at the tape, you look at some of those throws he was making to A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts was spectacular with his arm and with his legs, as per usual. The Eagles' running game is at or near the top of one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL. They have the best offensive line in the NFL, great weapons, outstanding front 4 of their defense. Front 7's pretty good too. I'm still genuinely concerned about their back end, and that back end is going to get tested in the next few weeks. Not starting this week. They got the Jets this week. But after that, the Eagles have a rough schedule ahead with 7 of 8 teams that we see as either playoff teams or Super Bowl contenders. So a tough schedule ahead for the Eagles. But listen, I'm not going to criticize them. They're 5-0. Only the Niners are 5-0 outside of Philadelphia. The big time win against the Rams, that was if I were a betting man game, I thought the Rams would not only cover but win due to their passing attack. The Philly exposed the Rams' lack of talent and depth at offensive line. Hats off to them. The Eagles today are the 3rd best team in the NFL. And here's where we get to no changes whatsoever. The 2nd best team in the NFL is the defending champion, Kansas City Chiefs. And here is why. So, again, people criticize Kansas City, and this drives me crazy, folks. People criticize Kansas City for these close wins. Oh, you played a 1-win Minnesota, go on the road, and hey, got a little dicey there at the end. I mean, the defense had to make a couple of plays, get an officiating break there with about 4 minutes to go. Folks, this isn't the AP top 25 in college football. This isn't the old BCS system. That doesn't matter. That's irrelevant, okay? Kansas City is absolutely one of the 2 best teams in the league. Patrick Mahomes is playing really good football right now. Travis Kelce, now he's hurt. We'll see if he's able to go tomorrow night. I'm about to predict Broncos and Chiefs in just a moment. But that defense in Kansas City, folks, just looks better and better every week. They can take the ball away. They can get to the quarterback. Chris Jones is having a monster season thus far to start this NFL season. Unquestionably the best interior defensive lineman with respect to the great Aaron Donald. Offensive line, Kansas City is really good. Andy Reid, we know the mastermind that he is. Kansas City just offensively, they make it look easy, and defensively, they look really, really scary certainly in the front four, even the front seven, and their back end is really good as well. They've drafted well. I really like the kid Trent McDuffie that they have in the secondary as well at corner. But big time win by the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 4-1, and they're the second best team in the NFL. That leaves a very obvious number one. The best team in the NFL today is the San Francisco 49ers. I don't even think I need to tell you why, but I'm going to. So, look, Christian McCaffrey's amazing. The offensive line's really good. George Kittle had 3 touchdowns against Dallas. Might get fined for the shirt he wore underneath his uniform, but let's see. He made his point note. He scored 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys. The Niners defense is just stacked full with playmakers. I forgot to mention Niners wide receivers, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings, really talented guys that they've got. And we cannot, this disrespect that we continue to show, and it's not been as bad this week, but in general, to Brock Purdy, always a product of the system. Do you know this stat about Brock Purdy? I found this very, very interesting. I was looking at Pro Football Focus, okay? Brock Purdy is if you look at the list here, the most efficient quarterback in the NFL when throwing outside the numbers. So he's not dinking and dunking. This isn't Jordan Love in Green Bay with the coaching staff's like, let's just keep him under wraps. Let's not have him make too many mistakes. No, they're like, Brock, sling it. Make those throws. Even if you don't have a crazy arm, he's accurate. He's got poise. He's got control in the pocket. Brock Purdy is every bit. It's undeniable at this point of a top 10 quarterback talent in the National Football League. Brock Purdy's playing unbelievable football. So are the Niners. I said on Monday's show, and I believe this has the potential, not saying they will be, but the potential to be the best team in the history of the National Football League. San Francisco, the best team in the NFL. They have been at number 1 for me since week 2, going into week 2. Obviously, no reason to change that whatsoever, given their performance against the Dallas Cowboys. San Francisco, the best team in the NFL, and that is Bryson's Best 10. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.